Welcome to the third of these 3 short tutorials based around the app, based around my book, How to Sight Read. In this third app, we look at what I call layered subdivision. And if you master this idea, you've mastered rhythm. You've got rhythm. Rhythm will never be a problem. You will know that you understand the rhythm. You will know that you will get the rhythm right. It won't be a matter of approximation or guesswork. You will know that you get it right. And so this particular part of the app shows you how this idea of subdivision can actually work in your mind in order to, when you look at a particular rhythm, you know how it goes. You can do that rhythm. Like the other 2 areas, it's a developmental area of sight reading. The book really identifies 9 areas of sight reading, 9 areas of technique. This one is found on page 49, section 3.7 on subdivision. And each of these 9 areas is developmental. In other words, you can develop them, put them all together, and you can sight read. I hope you'll find this one particularly interesting, this area of rhythm and subdivision. And as I say, once you've got this in your mind, you will be able to do rhythm.
I've occasionally heard a pupil or a student ask a teacher, how do you count a dotted crotchet? And I've occasionally heard the answer, 1.5. I call this the 1.5 syndrome. Because if you think about it, really, how do you count 1.5? You really can't count 1.5. It's an impossible concept if you think about it. And I think we have to really move on here and find another way forward to really grasp the understanding of rhythm. The first thing is we must ensure that we all have a very strong sense of pulse. Can you feel this? Like maybe feeling it like a big bass drum booming somewhere in your mind. And that has to be there. Well, whenever you sing, whenever you play a piece, you should really feel that pulse before you start. Decide on what the speed of the pulse is and feel that pulse. It's somewhere there in the back of your mind. And what I want you to practice is once you can feel that pulse, is practice then subdividing it, hearing the subdivision. So maybe you've got that big bass drum in the pulse and a side drum with a crisper, higher sort of timbre, feeling that subdivided pulse. And once you've got that, that's the beginning, really, of understanding rhythm. Because when that dotted rhythm then comes up, you know what it is. You know how to do that rhythm. You understand that rhythm and you know that you're going to be right on it because you absolutely understand it. It's not approximation or slightly guesswork. You know exactly how that rhythm works. That is at the basis of really understanding rhythm. And taking it another step further, and it's going to take all of us a little time to understand this and to get it. Some people might get it straight away, but do stick with it. The idea, I call it layered subdivision. And maybe what we're doing is in our minds, we are creating this rather sophisticated metronome where we've got the pulse and we've got subdivisions and we can, as it were, turn the volume level up of these appropriate subdivisions in order to get the rhythm. Let's say here's a rhythm, and maybe there's melody to it as well, but let's not worry about that at the moment. Here's a rhythm that comes in a piece. You have to decode it. It's got quite a lot of stuff in it, dotted quaver, semiquavers, quaver rests, all sorts of things that you might be thinking, oh, this is quite a tricky rhythm. Well, now, if you've got your layered subdivision, if you've got your sophisticated metronome instilled in your mind, that's what's going to happen. Now, that may look a little bit complicated to you, but I assure you it isn't if you practice and think about how this really works. And if you understand that having that pulse and then understanding the various subdivisions of that pulse in your mind, then you always get rhythm right. There's no problem. And I'm going to show you how we can now use the app to develop this ability. So we go to the rhythm segment on the app, click that, and we find this particular, this is all this is. This is what you will find there. And let me show you how you might use this to help work at that rhythm that we've just been looking at. So there it is. Now what we want is the pulse. So we set the pulse up as a crotchet. There it is. These are volume controls, really, so you can have it as loud or soft as you can, ultimately. But we're going to have them all at the same moment. So we have the pulse, we want the quaver subdivision, and we want the semiquaver subdivision. So we set all those three out. And then maybe you want to decide on what speed. The default is 120. Let's go for a bit slower than that. Maybe let's go for 100. So we just set that to 100. And then if we click the start button, you'll hear that sound. Let's just listen to the sound. And with these slides, you can change the volume. And you may just practice hearing a slightly softer pulse and a louder subdivision. So let's turn the pulse down a bit and keep both subdivisions louder. So I want you to do that for a bit and really get the feel that you can hear the pulse and those subdivisions in your mind. The next thing to do simply is to get out our piece of music and then switch on this LED subdivision device and hear it alongside reading the music and understanding how it works. So let's switch it on. I'm going to count a bar in and then we're going to have a go. So here we go. Here's and I'm just going to put them all at the same volume at the moment. So we switch on the subdivision, our internal, what eventually is going to become our internal sophisticated metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And so we might do that a few times with the sound on, and then eventually just do it again, having turned off the sound of the app, and see whether you can begin to get that internal subdivision, that internal metronome working in your mind. And just practice, a few bars of any piece in this way, and you'll find you'll begin really to instill this extraordinary device, and you just get rhythm. And of course, any subdivision is possible. As you can see here, you can work any. Maybe you want a even more serious one by the button at the bottom. You can make up more complicated subdivisions if necessary. But in fact, you probably won't find you ever need that. For most rhythm is contained with what we have here. You can set the pulse as a minim or even a semi-breve. Any subdivision really that you might require. And ultimately, if you play around with this for a little while on a fairly regular basis to begin with, you will develop this internal sophisticated metronome and you will know rhythm. Rhythm will not be a problem. It won't be an approximation. You will simply know rhythm.